It's 1:34 a.m. on a moonless Thursday night in rural Arizona, just 12 miles from the Mexican border, when 6 blacked-out SUVs roll slowly down a dirt road toward Redemption Ranch, a 300-acre cattle operation that's been in the Patterson family for 4 generations. 23 armed men exit the vehicles, carrying AR-15s, night vision equipment, and enough supplies to occupy the property for days. They're members of the Sinaloa cartel's Arizona distribution cell, and they've decided this isolated ranch is the perfect staging ground for their cross-border smuggling operations. What they don't know is that the 58-year-old rancher watching them through thermal imaging equipment from his barn is Thomas Patterson, a former Marine Corps Force reconnaissance operator who spent 15 years conducting covert operations in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. What happens over the next 6 hours will become the stuff of legend in border communities and change how cartels view American ranchers forever. Redemption Ranch sits in Cochise County, Arizona, in an area locals call the Corridor, because it's one of the most heavily trafficked drug and human smuggling routes in the United States. The ranch is 300 acres of high desert terrain, rocky hills, mesquite trees, scattered cattle, and a main compound consisting of a 2-story ranch house built in 1947, a large barn, equipment sheds, corrals, and a bunkhouse that hasn't been used in years. Thomas Patterson inherited this land from his father in 2015, and he's been running cattle here ever since his retirement from the Marines. The property is valuable not because of the cattle, but because of its location. It sits on a natural corridor used by smugglers for decades, with clear sight lines to Mexico, multiple access roads, and enough cover to hide operations from casual observation. The Sinaloa cartel has been watching this property for 8 months, waiting for the right moment to make their move. The leader of this operation is a 41-year-old cartel lieutenant named Hector Vargas, known in the organization as El Arquitecto, because of his ability to plan complex logistics operations. He's been with Sinaloa for 19 years, working his way up from low-level courier to regional coordinator. He's responsible for moving approximately $40 million worth of product across the border annually. He's smart, ruthless, and has successfully intimidated or corrupted dozens of ranchers, border patrol agents, and local officials. He's never failed an operation, never been arrested, never lost control of a situation. Tonight, he's leading 22 men, all experienced cartel operatives, to take possession of Redemption Ranch by force. The plan is simple: occupy the property, intimidate or remove the owner, establish a permanent staging area for smuggling operations, and pay off or threaten anyone who might interfere. Thomas Patterson is 58 years old, stands 6 feet 2 inches tall, and weighs 210 pounds of lean muscle maintained through daily ranch work and military discipline that never left him. He has gray hair cut high and tight, weathered skin from years in the Arizona sun, and dark brown eyes that still scan terrain with tactical awareness. Tonight he's wearing jeans, a black t-shirt, boots, and a tactical vest he keeps in the barn for emergencies. He's been awake for 2 hours, ever since his motion sensors detected multiple vehicles approaching from the south access road. Thomas installed a sophisticated security system 6 years ago after his ranch was used as a temporary crossing point by smugglers who cut his fence and left trash and evidence everywhere. The system includes motion sensors along the perimeter, thermal imaging cameras covering all approaches, and a command center in the barn where he can monitor everything from multiple screens. When the sensors triggered at 1:17 a.m., Thomas woke immediately, grabbed his gear, and moved to the barn to assess the situation. The 6 SUVs are Chevy Suburbans, stolen from various locations in Phoenix and Tucson over the past month. License plates removed. VINs filed off. Completely untraceable. Hector Vargas exits the lead vehicle wearing tactical gear, body armor, and carrying a short-barreled AR-15 with a holographic sight. His men spread out in professional formation, 4 moving toward the main house, 6 toward the barn, 8 establishing a perimeter, and 5 staying with the vehicles. They communicate through radio headsets, speaking in Spanish, coordinated and efficient. This isn't their first property takeover. They've done this 17 times in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas over the past 3 years. Every time, the property owner either cooperates immediately, flees, or gets hurt badly. Hector expects tonight to follow the same pattern. Thomas watches all of this unfold on his screens in the barn. He counts 23 men. All armed. Professional movement. Military-style tactics. This isn't a random group of smugglers. This is an organized operation. He reaches for his satellite phone, a backup communication system he keeps in case cell towers go down or are jammed. Dials a number he hasn't called in 6 years. The phone rings 3 times. A voice answers, rough with sleep. This is Mendez. Tom, it's Patterson. I have a situation at the ranch. 23 armed hostiles. Cartel. Attempting to occupy my property. Need immediate backup. Sergeant Major Carlos Mendez was Thomas's team leader for 8 years in Force Recon. He retired 5 years ago and now lives in Tucson, working as a private security consultant. How far out are they?
On property now.
Moving toward structures.
You armed? Affirmative. Full loadout in the barn. Good. Hold position.
I'm mobilizing support. ETA 90 minutes. Can you hold that long?
Affirmative. I'll make contact.
Try to de-escalate.
Buy time. Be careful, Tom.
These aren't amateurs. Neither am I. If you want to see how this ends, hit that subscribe button right now because what happens next is absolutely insane.
Thomas hangs up. Checks his weapons.
He has an M4 carbine, military spec, legally owned with proper permits. A Sig Sauer P320 handgun as backup. 6 magazines for the M4, 4 for the pistol.
Flashbangs. Smoke grenades. Body armor.
Night vision goggles. Everything a former Force Recon Marine keeps on hand when living 12 miles from one of the most dangerous borders in North America. He's not looking for a fight.
But if these men force one, he's prepared.
Thomas picks up a handheld radio set to the same frequency the cartel is using, something he learned to monitor years ago. He transmits in Spanish.
Attention.
This is the property owner. You are trespassing on private land. Leave immediately or I will defend my property with lethal force. You have 5 minutes to comply. The cartel operatives freeze.
Look at each other.
Hector Vargas grabs his radio.
Who is this?
This is Thomas Patterson. I own this ranch. You have 4 minutes and 30 seconds to leave.
Hector laughs.
A cold sound without humor. Senor Patterson, you are alone. We are 23. You have cattle and old buildings to defend. We have weapons and numbers. The smart thing is to walk away. Let us use your land. We will pay you well.
No one gets hurt.
I'm not interested in your money. You have 4 minutes. Hector's expression hardens. He signals to his men. 6 operatives move toward the barn in tactical formation, weapons raised, using cover effectively.
They reach the barn doors. Stack up. Breach.
The barn doors explode outward as a flashbang detonates. The 6 men stumble back, temporarily blinded and deafened. Through the smoke and confusion, Thomas's voice comes over the radio again, calm and measured. That was a warning. Next breach attempt will be met with lethal force.
Leave now.
Hector is furious. He's never been resisted like this. Never encountered a property owner with military-grade equipment and the skill to use it. He grabs his radio. You just made a very big mistake, old man. You're going to watch your ranch burn.
Thomas doesn't respond.
He's moving. He exited the barn through a back door 20 seconds after throwing the flashbang, used the confusion to relocate to a position in the rocks 50 yards east with clear sight lines to the compound. He's in full combat mode now. Breathing controlled.
Heart rate steady.
Muscle memory from 15 years of Force Recon operations taking over. He's done this 1,000 times in training and real combat. The difference is now he's defending his home instead of attacking an enemy position. Hector regroups his men. 8 approach the main house, planning to breach and search for Thomas. 6 guard the vehicles. 5 establish overwatch positions on high ground. 4 continue advancing on the barn, more carefully this time. Thomas watches through his night vision scope. He's not going to shoot unless absolutely necessary. Killing these men, even in self-defense, will create a legal and political nightmare. But he will make them believe he's willing to. He picks up a rock, throws it hard against a metal equipment shed 80 yards from his position. The sound echoes. Every cartel operative spins toward it, weapons raised. In that moment of distraction, Thomas fires 3 rounds from his M4, not at the men but at the ground 15 feet in front of the closest group.
Dirt and rock explode.
The men dive for cover, shouting into radios.
Taking fire. Taking fire.
Hector's voice cuts through the chaos.
Where?
Where's the shooter?
Unknown. Can't locate.
Hector realizes he's dealing with someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Someone with training.
Equipment.
Tactical advantage. This isn't a scared rancher with a hunting rifle.
This is a professional.
He grabs his radio.
Patterson. You want war? We bring war. You will die tonight. Thomas doesn't respond.
He's already moved again.
New position. 40 yards west. Higher ground.
Better angles. He can see everything. Every vehicle. Every man. Every movement. Hector doesn't know it yet, but he's lost tactical advantage. Thomas owns this terrain. Knows every rock, every gully, every sight line. He trained for this exact scenario. The 8 men breach Thomas's house. Smash through the front door. Sweep room by room. Find nothing. No one. They trash the place anyway. Break furniture. Knock over shelves. Send a message. When they exit, Hector orders them to burn it. They douse the interior with gasoline from jerry cans they brought. Light it. Flames spread quickly. The house Thomas's great-grandfather built in 1947 starts burning. Thomas watches through his scope. Feels anger rising. Controls it. Emotions get you killed in combat. He focuses on the objective. Survive. Delay. Wait for backup. The house can be rebuilt. His life can't be replaced. Hector is getting frustrated. 90 minutes have passed since they arrived. They've secured the ranch but haven't found Patterson. Can't locate him. Can't predict his movements. And now they're taking sporadic fire from unknown positions. 2 of his men are injured, not shot but injured when Thomas collapsed a section of fence near them, causing a panic scramble where one man twisted his ankle and another cut his arm on barbed wire. Hector calls his superior, a cartel boss in Sonora. Explains the situation. The boss is not happy. You said this would be simple. Occupy and control. Instead you have a war with one man. Fix this. Eliminate him or withdraw. Those are your options. But do it fast. Every minute you're exposed, there's risk. Hector chooses to eliminate. He organizes a coordinated sweep. 12 men in 3 teams, moving through the property methodically, clearing every structure, every hiding spot, every potential position. They start at 3:45 a.m. Thomas watches them organize. Recognizes the tactic. They're doing a proper military sweep. These aren't just thugs. They have training. He needs to disrupt their coordination. He fires his M4. Single shots. 1 at a time. At vehicles. Tires explode. Windshields shatter. Engines punctured. 3 vehicles disabled in 20 seconds. Hector's men scatter. The sweep breaks down as everyone takes cover. You see him? Where is he? Northeast ridge. No, southwest. He's everywhere. Thomas isn't everywhere. He's in one place. A rocky outcrop 200 yards from the compound with perfect overwatch. But he's moving after every shot. Making them think there are multiple shooters. Classic force recon tactic. Make the enemy overestimate your numbers. Create confusion. Break their morale. It's working. Hector's men are getting scared. This was supposed to be easy. Instead, they're pinned down by an invisible enemy who seems to anticipate their every move. 4 a.m. arrives. Thomas's satellite phone vibrates. Text message from Mendez. 30 minutes out. 6 personnel. Heavy support. Hold position. Thomas texts back. Holding. Hostiles burning structures. Disabled 3 vehicles. No casualties. Good work. We're coming in hot. Before we continue, if this story has you on the edge of your seat, do me a solid. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to see it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Now let's get back to the action. Hector makes a decision. He's losing control. Time is running out. Dawn is coming and with it visibility. Potential witnesses. Police. Border Patrol. He needs to end this now. He organizes his remaining men. 19 still combat effective. 2 injured. 2 guarding vehicles. He takes 15 men and moves toward the rocky area where he thinks Thomas is hiding. They advance in a line, weapons up, covering each other. Professional. Dangerous. Thomas sees them coming. He's in a bad position now. They're closing on his location. He can't retreat without exposing himself. Can't stay without being overrun. He has maybe 3 minutes before they reach his position. He makes a choice. Stands up. Steps into full view. Weapon lowered. Hands visible. 15 cartel operatives see him simultaneously. Weapons snap up. 15 rifles pointing at one man. Thomas doesn't move. Doesn't raise his weapon. Just stands there, completely exposed, completely vulnerable. Hector approaches carefully. His men surround Thomas in a semicircle, weapons trained. Thomas just stares at Hector. No fear. No panic. Just cold calculation. Hector smiles. Finally. I was starting to think you were a ghost, Senor Patterson.
You fought well. Impressively. But it's over.
You're outnumbered.
Outgunned.
Your house is burning. Your vehicles are gone. You have nothing left. Surrender and maybe you live. Maybe we let you walk away. Maybe you watch us use your ranch and you stay quiet. Or maybe you die here.
Your choice.
Thomas speaks for the first time face to face.
His voice is calm.
Matter of fact. You made 3 mistakes tonight, Hector. Hector's smile fades.
What?
First mistake, you assumed I was alone. Second mistake, you thought burning my house would break my will. Third mistake, you wasted 4.5 hours giving my backup time to arrive. On cue, 6 vehicles appear on the ridge behind Thomas's position. Headlights illuminate the area.
15 men exit. All armed.
All wearing tactical gear. All moving with military precision. Sergeant Major Carlos Mendez leads them, carrying an M249 squad automatic weapon. His voice booms across the terrain. This is private property.
You are trespassing.
Drop your weapons immediately or we will open fire. You have 30 seconds to comply. Hector's men look at each other.
Panic spreading. They're caught in the open. Surrounded. 15 men in front of them. 6 behind them. 21 armed opponents total.
All with military training. All with superior positions. Hector realizes he's been played. Patterson wasn't trying to fight them.
He was delaying them. Buying time.
And now that time has run out. He grabs his radio.
Fall back.
Everyone fall back to vehicles. His men retreat in disorder. Running toward their SUVs. 3 vehicles are disabled. They pile into the remaining 3.
Engines roar. Tires spin.
They flee down the dirt road, leaving 2 injured men behind in their panic. Thomas's backup team secures the 2 injured cartel operatives.
Zip tie their hands. Provide first aid.
Sergeant Major Mendez approaches Thomas.
Puts a hand on his shoulder. You okay? Thomas nods. House is gone. But I'm alive.
That's what matters.
You did good, Tom.
Held them off for 4 hours against 23 hostiles.
That's textbook force recon.
Thomas looks at his burning house. 4 generations of family history going up in smoke.
Yeah. Textbook.
Mendez squeezes his shoulder. We called Border Patrol and County Sheriff before we arrived.
They're 10 minutes out. We'll secure the scene.
You did everything right.
Self-defense. Clear case. You'll be fine.
The authorities arrive at 4:47 a.m.
Border Patrol. County Sheriff.
FBI, because cartel activity on U.S. soil is federal jurisdiction. They document everything. Thomas's security system recorded the entire incident. 23 armed men invading private property. Burning structures. Threatening the owner. Thomas defending himself without firing a single shot at a human being, only warning shots and shots at vehicles. The 2 captured cartel operatives are arrested. Charged with dozens of federal crimes. They start talking immediately.
Giving up names. Locations. Operations. Trying to cut deals.
Within 48 hours, FBI arrests 17 more members of the Sinaloa distribution cell, including 3 corrupt Border Patrol agents who were feeding information to the cartel. Hector Vargas escapes initially. Crosses back into Mexico. But the information from the captured operatives leads to his location. 3 weeks later, Mexican federal police, working with DEA, raid a compound in Sonora. Hector is arrested. Extradited to the United States. Faces life in federal prison. The entire Arizona distribution network collapses. Over $40 million in annual trafficking is disrupted. It's the biggest cartel bust in Arizona in 5 years. And it all started because one retired Marine refused to let criminals take his family's ranch. The investigation reveals something interesting. Hector's operation was targeting multiple ranches in the corridor. Redemption Ranch was just the first. The cartel had identified 8 properties they planned to occupy and use as staging areas. After what happened to Hector's team, the cartel abandons those plans. Word spreads through border communities. The gringo rancher who fought off 23 cartel operatives with nothing but training, equipment, and guts. Ranchers who were being pressured to cooperate with smugglers find new courage. They report activity. Install security systems. Organize neighborhood watches.
Form mutual aid agreements. The tide starts to turn.
Thomas Patterson becomes something of a legend, though he doesn't want the attention. News outlets request interviews. He declines all of them. Congressional representatives want to honor him. He politely refuses. He just wants to rebuild his house and get back to ranching. But the story spreads anyway. The 60-year-old rancher, 58-year-old rancher who used Marine Corps tactics to defend his land against a cartel. People start calling him the Operator. A nickname from his force recon days that follows him into civilian life. Insurance covers most of the house reconstruction. Thomas's Marine buddies show up to help rebuild. 20 former force recon operators, some traveling from across the country, spend 3 weeks working on the property. They rebuild the house stronger than before.
Reinforced walls. Bulletproof windows. Safe room.
Enhanced security. When they finish, Redemption Ranch is less of a ranch and more of a fortified compound. Thomas jokes that it's overkill. His friends joke that after what happened, it's just sensible preparation. Within 6 months, Thomas's house is rebuilt. His cattle operation is running again. Life returns to something resembling normal. Except now he gets calls from other ranchers.
Asking for advice.
How to secure their properties. What systems to install. How to prepare for cartel pressure.
Thomas helps when he can. Consulting. Teaching.
Sharing his knowledge. 1 year after the incident, Thomas receives a letter.
No return address.
Postmarked from Mexico. He opens it carefully. Inside is a handwritten note in Spanish. Señor Patterson, my name is Miguel. I was one of the men with Hector Vargas that night at your ranch. I was captured. Arrested. I spent 10 months in federal prison before deportation. I am writing to tell you something. That night changed my life. I was with the cartel for 6 years. Did terrible things.
Hurt people.
Made money from suffering. But I told myself it was just business. Just survival. Then I met you. A man who refused to surrender his land even when surrounded and outgunned. A man who fought with skill and courage. You showed me something I had forgotten. That honor still exists. That there are people who stand for something. I am out of the cartel now. I work construction in Hermosillo. Legitimate work. Honest pay. I will never go back to that life. I wanted you to know that your courage did more than defend your ranch. It showed at least one criminal that another way is possible. Thank you. Miguel. Thomas reads the letter 3 times. He never expected this. Never thought about the impact beyond defending his property. But here it is. Written proof that sometimes standing your ground does more than just protect your land. It shows others that resistance is possible. That courage matters. That one person can make a difference. He puts the letter in a frame. Hangs it in his rebuilt house. A reminder that every action has consequences beyond what we see. 2 years after the incident, Border Patrol statistics show a significant shift. Cartel activity in the corridor has dropped by 43%. Property crimes against ranchers are down 38%. Cooperation between ranchers and law enforcement is at an all-time high. The change isn't entirely because of Thomas Patterson. But his stand that night inspired others. Created momentum. Showed what's possible when people refuse to be victims. Federal agents credit the shift to improved coordination and resources. But they privately acknowledge that Thomas's defense of Redemption Ranch was a turning point. It broke the myth of cartel invincibility. Showed that Americans on the border won't simply roll over. 3 years after the incident, Thomas Patterson is 61 years old. Still running his ranch. Still consulting with other property owners. Still helping train local ranchers in security protocols. He's become an unofficial advisor to several law enforcement agencies on border security issues, particularly how to protect rural property owners from cartel pressure. He doesn't take payment for this work. Considers it his civic duty. One afternoon, he's fixing fence when a truck pulls up. A man in his 30s gets out. Hispanic. Nervous. Thomas recognizes him immediately. It's Miguel. The cartel operative who sent him the letter. Señor Patterson? Thomas stands. Sets down his tools. Miguel. What are you doing here? Miguel raises his hands, showing he's unarmed. I know I shouldn't be here. I'm probably violating deportation orders just by crossing the border. But I had to come. Had to see you in person. Had to say thank you properly. Thomas gestures to his porch. Come. Sit. Let's talk. They spend 2 hours talking. Miguel tells his story. How he was recruited by the cartel at 17. How violence became normal. How he lost himself in that life. How Thomas's stand that night made him question everything. How he left the cartel, moved to a different city, started over. How hard it's been, but how much better he feels living honestly. Thomas listens without judgment. When Miguel finishes, Thomas asks, "What are your plans now?"
Miguel shrugs. "I don't know.
"I wanted to come here." "Say thank you. Then go back to Mexico. Try to keep building my new life."
It's hard.
The cartel doesn't forget. Some days I think they'll find me. Kill me for leaving. But even if they do, these 3 years of living right have been worth more than 6 years of living wrong.
Thomas thinks for a moment. "I have a proposition.
I need help on this ranch.
Good help. Someone who works hard. Someone I can trust."
The pay isn't great, but it's honest. Room and board included. You interested?
Miguel stares at him.
You would hire me?
After what I was part of.
After that night?
Thomas nods.
You're not that person anymore. You proved it by walking away. By rebuilding your life. Everyone deserves a second chance if they're willing to work for it.
Are you willing? Miguel tears up.
Yes.
I am.
Miguel becomes Thomas's ranch hand.
Works 12-hour days.
Repairs fences.
Tends cattle. Maintains equipment.
Learns ranching from the ground up.
He's good at it. Dedicated.
Grateful for the opportunity. 6 months into the job, Miguel asks Thomas a question. "Why did you trust me?" "I was part of the group that tried to take your ranch."
"Burned your house."
"You had every reason to hate me. Why give me a chance?" Thomas is quiet for a moment, then answers. "Because I learned something in the Marines. The enemy isn't always your enemy. Sometimes they're just people on the wrong side of a bad situation. You recognized that.
Changed it.
That takes more courage than fighting. I respect that." 4 years after the incident, Thomas Patterson's ranch is thriving. He's expanded operations. Bought adjacent property.
Increased his herd.
Miguel has become indispensable. Not just as a worker but as a bridge between Thomas and the Hispanic community in the area. Together, they've helped 3 other former cartel members leave that life and find legitimate work. Started a small informal program. Nothing official. Just word of mouth. If you want out, if you're willing to work, there might be a chance. It doesn't work for everyone.
Some men are too far gone.
Too embedded in cartel life. But for some, it's exactly what they need. Federal agents hear about what Thomas is doing. They're skeptical at first. Worried he's being manipulated. They investigate. Find nothing improper. Eventually, they start referring people to him. Former cartel associates who want out but have nowhere to go. Thomas doesn't take everyone.
He's careful. Vets people.
Makes sure they're genuine. But those he does accept, he gives everything.
A job. Structure. Purpose. A way forward.
The success rate is about 60%. Better than most rehabilitation programs. 5 years after the incident, the Arizona Republic runs a feature story. The Rancher Who Became a Legend. It details Thomas's military service, the night he fought off the cartel, and his unexpected role helping former criminals build new lives. The story goes viral.
Thousands of comments. Most positive. Some critical.
People who think Thomas is naive or dangerous for hiring former cartel members. People who think he's a hero. People who think he's just a man doing what he thinks is right. Thomas reads the article once. Doesn't comment publicly. Just keeps working. Keeps ranching. Keeps helping people who want help. One evening, he's sitting on his rebuilt porch watching the sunset when Miguel approaches. "Boss, can I ask you something?"
"Always."
"Do you regret it?"
"That night? The fight?
Losing your house?" Thomas considers the question seriously. "I regret that it happened. Regret that criminals felt entitled to take what wasn't theirs. Regret that violence was necessary. But I don't regret standing my ground. This land is my family's legacy. 4 generations built something here. I wasn't going to let criminals take that. Would I do it again?
In a heartbeat.
But I hope I never have to."
Miguel nods. "I understand.
And for what it's worth, I'm glad you did. If you hadn't, I'd probably be dead or in prison by now.
Instead, I'm here. Building a life."
"That's because of you."
Thomas shakes his head.
"That's because of you.
I just opened a door."
You're the one who walked through it and did the work. Give yourself credit. 6 years after the incident, Thomas Patterson is 64 years old. He's considering retirement. Really retirement this time. Turning over the ranch operations to Miguel and a younger partner. Spending his days fishing. Visiting his daughter in Colorado. Relaxing.
But then calls keep coming.
Ranchers needing advice. Former cartel members needing help. Law enforcement agencies needing consultation. And Thomas keeps answering.
Because that's who he is. A Marine. A rancher.
A man who stands his ground. A man who believes in second chances. A man who proves every day that courage, preparation, and principle still matter. 7 years after the incident, Thomas receives a call from the Department of Homeland Security. They want him to speak at a border security conference. Share his story. Discuss his approach to cartel pressure and his rehabilitation program.
Thomas initially declines.
He's not a public speaker.
Not comfortable with attention.
But they persist. Explain that his experience could help shape policy. Could influence how the government approaches border security and criminal rehabilitation.
Thomas thinks about it. Talks to Miguel. Talks to his Marine buddies.
Finally agrees. The conference is in El Paso. 300 law enforcement officials.
Border Patrol agents. Federal prosecutors. Policy makers.
Thomas stands at the podium.
Nervous at first. Then he finds his voice. He tells the story of that night.
23 armed cartel members. 4 hours of tactical delay. The backup that saved him.
The arrests that followed.
The collapse of a major distribution network. But then he talks about what came after. The letter from Miguel. The decision to hire him. The rehabilitation program that emerged organically.
The lives changed.
He makes his point simply. Security isn't just about walls and enforcement. It's about giving people options.
Paths forward.
The cartel recruits young men because those men see no other way to survive, to provide, to have purpose. If we give them alternatives, some will take them.
Not all. But some.
And those some might save others.
Might break cycles.
Might change communities. The response is mixed. Some officials love the message.
See the potential.
Others are skeptical. Think Thomas is too idealistic. That you can't rehabilitate cartel members. That the only answer is enforcement. Thomas doesn't argue. Just shares his experience.
What worked for him?
What might work for others? He leaves the rest to them. After the conference, 5 ranchers approach him. They've been dealing with cartel pressure. They want to learn his tactics. His security protocols.
His approach to resistance.
Thomas agrees to help. Spends the next 3 months traveling to different ranches teaching.
Training.
Installing systems. Building networks. By the end of those 3 months, a dozen ranches have upgraded security.
Formed mutual aid agreements.
Created communication networks. The corridor becomes harder for cartels to operate in.
Not impossible. But harder.
And harder is often enough. 8 years after the incident, Thomas Patterson finally retires. Sells his operation to Miguel and a partnership group. Stays on as an advisor but steps back from day-to-day operations. He moves to a smaller property 50 miles north.
Just 20 acres. A few horses. A garden. Peace.
But he stays connected. Continues consulting. Continues helping. Continues being the man he's always been. One afternoon, he gets a visitor.
A young man. 22. Hispanic. Scared.
My name is Carlos.
I'm in a cartel. I want out. But I don't know how.
They'll kill me if I leave. Someone told me you help people. Is that true?
Thomas looks at this kid.
Sees Miguel 7 years ago. Sees himself at 22, young Marine trying to figure out who he was and what he stood for.
He nods.
It's true. But you have to understand something. Leaving is hard. Staying out is harder.
You'll have to work. Sacrifice.
Probably relocate. Cut ties with everyone you know.
Start completely over. Can you do that?
Carlos doesn't hesitate.
Yes. I can. I have to.
This life is killing me.
Not physically. But inside. I can't do it anymore. Thomas stands. Okay. Let's make a plan.
Over the next 2 weeks, Thomas coordinates with federal agents, secures protective relocation for Carlos, debriefs him on cartel operations, helps him testify, and eventually finds him a job working construction in New Mexico.
Away from Arizona.
Away from his old life.
A fresh start.
Carlos takes it.
Succeeds. 3 years later, Thomas gets a card. Carlos is married now. Has a daughter. Works as a foreman. Thanks Thomas for saving his life. 9 years after the incident, Thomas is 67. His daughter asks him to write his story. His whole story. Military service. The ranch. That night. Everything after. Thomas is reluctant. But she persists. Finally, he agrees. Spends 6 months writing. It's not fancy. Not polished. Just honest. The story of a man who served his country, then served his community, then served individuals who needed help. When he finishes, his daughter helps him find a publisher. The book is released the following year. Title: Standing Ground, One Marine's Fight Against Cartels and for Second Chances. It sells modestly. Mostly in border states. Military communities. Law enforcement circles. But it has impact. Senators reference it in border security debates. Law enforcement agencies use it in training. Ranchers read it and take action on their properties. 10 years after the incident, Thomas Patterson is 68 years old. He's invited back to Redemption Ranch for an anniversary event. Miguel organized it. 15 former cartel members who left that life are there. They're all working legitimate jobs now. Construction. Ranching. Restaurant work. Factory jobs. Honest work. They gather on the property where it all started. Where Thomas made his stand. Where the course of many lives changed. They share stories. Laugh. Thank each other. Miguel gives a speech. Talks about how scared he was that night. How impressed he was by Thomas's courage. How that courage planted a seed. How that seed grew into a decision to change. How that decision led to this moment. 15 men living free. 15 families benefiting. Dozens of people who would have been hurt by cartel activity but weren't because these men left. The ripple effect of one person choosing to stand his ground. If you've made it this far, I need you to do something important right now. Subscribe to this channel. Hit that like button hard. Share this video everywhere. And drop a comment below telling me, would you have done what Thomas did? Would you have stood your ground against 23 armed men? Would you have given Miguel a second chance? I want to hear your honest thoughts. Because this story isn't just about one night or one man. It's about all of us. About the choices we make when threatened. About whether we believe people can change. About whether courage still matters in a world that often feels overwhelming. So comment below. Let's have a real conversation. And thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of a community that believes stories like this matter. Thomas stands at that anniversary gathering, surrounded by men whose lives intersected with his in violence and transformed into something better. He thinks about that night 10 years ago. Alone. Outnumbered. Watching his house burn. Wondering if he'd survive. He survived. But more importantly, he chose to do something with that survival. He chose to build instead of just defend. To help instead of just fight. To believe in redemption instead of just punishment. And that choice changed everything. The gathering breaks up at sunset. People shake hands. Exchange contact information. Promise to stay in touch. Miguel walks Thomas to his truck. They stand in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the last rays of sun paint the desert orange and red. Boss, Miguel says finally. You changed my life. You know that, right? Thomas nods. You changed your own life. I just gave you the opportunity. Miguel shakes his head. No. You gave me more than opportunity. You gave me belief. Belief that I could be something other than what I was. That my past didn't have to define my future. That's what changed everything. Thomas grips Miguel's shoulder. And you proved it true. That's the important part. Keep proving it. Every day. Miguel smiles. I will. I promise. Thomas drives home that evening thinking about legacy. What we leave behind when we're gone. He spent 15 years in the Marine Corps serving his country. Important work. Necessary work. But the legacy he's most proud of isn't the missions he completed or the medals he earned. It's this. 15 men living free. 15 families intact. Communities safer because those men left the cartel. Ranchers standing their ground because they learned it was possible. That's legacy. That's impact that lasts beyond one lifetime. 11 years after the incident, Thomas receives a call from the Department of Justice. They want to create a pilot program based on his model. Federal funding. Official structure.
Partnership with Border Patrol and ICE. The goal is to offer cartel members a way out if they provide intelligence and agree to rehabilitation.
Thomas is skeptical.
Government programs have bureaucracy,
Red tape. Politics.
but they're offering real resources. The ability to help more people than Thomas could ever reach alone.
He agrees to consult. Helps design the program.
Insists on certain principles. No one gets in without genuine desire to change.
No shortcuts.
No passes for violent crimes. Work is required. Accountability is mandatory. Second chances are earned, not given. The program launches with 20 participants. Former low-level cartel operatives. Couriers.
Lookouts.
Enforcers who never killed anyone. They're vetted extensively. Provided with jobs, housing, counseling, and education. Monitored closely. After 1 year, 16 of the 20 are still in the program.
Still clean. Still working.
For dropped out, 2 returned to crime and were arrested, 2 simply disappeared. An 80% success rate. Better than anyone expected.
The program expands. 50 participants. Then 100. Then 200.
Not everyone succeeds. Some men can't escape the pull of cartel life.
Some are too damaged.
Some just don't want to change badly enough. But enough do that the program becomes permanent. Gains bipartisan support. Gets praised by law enforcement and civil rights advocates alike. 12 years after the incident, Thomas is 70. His health is declining. Years of military service and ranch work have taken their toll.
Bad knees. Aching back.
Arthritis in his hands. But his mind is sharp. His purpose is clear. He continues consulting on the rehabilitation program. Speaking at conferences. Helping individual ranchers. One morning, he wakes up with chest pain. Drives himself to the hospital.
Heart attack.
Not severe but serious. He spends 3 days in ICU. During that time, his room fills with visitors.
Miguel. Carlos. Other men he helped. His Marine buddies.
Law enforcement officials. Ranchers. Even a few federal prosecutors. All coming to check on the man who changed their lives or their perspectives. When Thomas is discharged, his daughter insists he move in with her in Colorado. No more living alone in rural Arizona.
No more consulting.
No more traveling.
Time to rest.
Time to let others carry the work forward.
Thomas resists at first.
But his body betrays him. He's not the Force Recon Marine anymore. Not the rancher who fought off 23 cartel members. He's a 70-year-old man with a bad heart and worn-out joints. He agrees to move. Sells his small property. Packs his life into boxes. Prepares to leave Arizona, the place that's been his home for decades. The day before he leaves, Miguel organizes a surprise. 143 people gather at a community center in Tucson. All connected to Thomas in some way. Former cartel members he helped. Ranchers he advised. Marines he served with. Law enforcement officials he consulted for.
They've chipped in money.
Created a scholarship fund in his name for children of former cartel members trying to build new lives. The Thomas Patterson Second Chance Scholarship. $25,000 annually for education expenses. Managed by a nonprofit.
Permanent.
Thomas is overwhelmed. He's never been comfortable with recognition. Never wanted thanks. Just wanted to do what was right. But standing in that room, seeing all these people whose lives intersected with his, understanding the ripple effects of his choices, he feels something he hasn't felt in years.
Complete peace.
Not the absence of conflict but the presence of purpose fulfilled.
He gives a short speech.
His voice cracks with emotion. I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who refused to let criminals take what belonged to my family. What I did that night, any of you would have done the same. Standing your ground isn't heroic. It's necessary. What happened after, that wasn't planned.
It just evolved.
Miguel reached out. I gave him a chance.
He proved himself.
Others saw that and wanted the same. I helped when I could. That's all. If there's any lesson in my story, it's this. Never underestimate the impact of one choice. One moment of courage. One offer of mercy. You never know how far it will ripple. Those ripples can change lives. Communities. Maybe even the world. So make good choices. Stand for something. Help people who want help. That's all any of us can do. But that's enough. It's always enough. Thomas moves to Colorado. His daughter sets him up in a small guest house on her property.
Quiet. Peaceful.
Access to medical care. She checks on him daily. His grandchildren visit.
He reads. Gardens. Reflects. But he stays connected. Email. Phone calls.
Video conferences. The rehabilitation program he helped design continues growing. After 3 years, it has helped over 400 former cartel members leave that life. The success rate holds steady around 75%. 300 people living legitimate lives who would otherwise be involved in trafficking, violence, and crime. The impact is measurable. Border communities report feeling safer. Cartel recruitment is down. Young men have options they didn't before. 13 years after the incident, Thomas is 71.
His health stabilizes.
He's not going to run marathons or work cattle ranches anymore.
But he's comfortable. At peace. One afternoon, he gets a video call. It's from Miguel. Boss, I have news. What's up?
I'm getting married. Thomas smiles broadly. That's wonderful.
Who's the lucky woman?
Her name is Rosa.
She's a teacher. We met at church.
She knows my history.
Everything. And she still said yes.
I wanted you to be the first to know. I want you to be at the wedding. Thomas feels tears in his eyes. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The wedding is 3 months later.
Small ceremony. Intimate.
Thomas flies to Arizona. Walks Miguel down the aisle because Miguel's father is dead and Thomas is the closest thing he has to a father figure. During the ceremony, the priest talks about redemption. About second chances. About the courage it takes to change and the grace it takes to accept that change in others.
He looks directly at Thomas.
Says that sometimes God sends us angels disguised as Marines.
The congregation laughs. Thomas shakes his head.
But he understands the sentiment. At the reception, Thomas sits with other men he helped.
They share stories. Laugh. Celebrate.
One of them, a former enforcer named Javier who now works as a welder, asks Thomas a question. Do you ever think about that night? About what could have happened if things went differently?
Thomas considers it. All the time.
If I had panicked. If my backup hadn't arrived. If Hector had been smarter or luckier.
I'd be dead.
My ranch would be a cartel staging ground. None of you would be here living free. Everything that came after hinged on that one night.
On training. Preparation.
And honestly, luck.
Javier nods.
My nephew asks me about you. Wants to know if you're real or like a legend people made up. I told him you're real. But you're also proof that one person can make a difference. That standing up matters. He wants to join the Marines because of you. Thomas meets Javier's nephew the next day.
He's 18. Bright. Motivated. Wants to serve.
Wants to make a difference like Thomas did. They talk for an hour. Thomas shares his experience.
The good parts. The hard parts. The cost of service.
The value of discipline. The importance of principles. At the end, the kid asks, if you could do it all again, would you still join the Marines?
Thomas doesn't hesitate.
Absolutely. The Marines made me who I am. Taught me skills that saved my life. Gave me brothers who had my back when it mattered most. Instilled values that guided every decision after. Would I change some things?
Sure. But overall?
No regrets. Service matters. Standing for something matters. And if you're willing to pay the price, it's worth every sacrifice. 14 years after the incident, Thomas is 72. He's writing again. Not a book this time. A manual. Defense and Resistance, a practical guide for border ranchers. It covers everything. Security systems. Tactical awareness. De-escalation techniques. When to fight. When to retreat. How to coordinate with law enforcement. Legal considerations for self-defense. Resource lists. It's comprehensive. Professional. The kind of manual Thomas wishes he had when he first moved to the border. He finishes it after 8 months of work. A publisher specializing in security and tactical manuals agrees to print it. The manual is released 15 years after the incident. It becomes required reading for ranch security consultants, border property owners, and even some law enforcement training programs. Over 5,000 copies sell in the first year. 15 years after the incident, on the anniversary, Thomas is 73. He's back in Arizona for a memorial service. Not for someone who died. For something that was reborn. The service is held at Redemption Ranch. Miguel still runs it.
It's thriving. The property has expanded to 500 acres. Over 300 head of cattle. Miguel has hired 8 employees, 6 of them former cartel members who went through rehabilitation. The ranch has become a model for what's possible. A working operation that's also a path to redemption. They've even started hosting tours for at-risk youth, showing them that legitimate work can be rewarding. That crime isn't the only path. At the service, a monument is unveiled. A simple stone marker placed where Thomas's original house stood before it burned. The inscription reads, "On this ground, September 2009, one man stood against 23. Not for glory. Not for recognition. For family. For principle. For the belief that some things are worth defending. His courage inspired others. His mercy transformed lives. His legacy continues." Below that, a list of names. The 143 people who were directly helped by Thomas's rehabilitation efforts. And below that, the ripples continue. Thomas stands in front of the monument. Thinks about that night 15 years ago. Young man? Relatively speaking. Younger than now. Alone. Afraid but unwilling to show it. Determined to defend what was his. He had no idea what would come after. No plan beyond survival. But survival led to opportunity. Opportunity led to change. Change led to transformation. Not just for him. For hundreds of others. He thinks about the military principle that guided so much of his life. Leave no one behind. He applied it differently after that night. Leave no one behind who wants to move forward. Give everyone a chance who's willing to work for it. Judge people by who they're becoming, not just who they were. That principle, combined with Marine Corps skills and rancher stubbornness, created something unexpected. A movement. A model. A message that resonates beyond border communities. After the ceremony, Thomas is approached by a young woman. She's in her 20s. Nervous. "Senor Patterson?" "Yes? My name is Maria. You don't know me. But you knew my father. His name was Miguel. Miguel Hernandez. He worked for you." Thomas's eyes widen. Miguel died 2 years ago. Cancer. It was sudden. Devastating. Thomas attended the funeral. Spoke at it. But he hasn't seen Miguel's family since. "Maria, I'm so sorry. Your father was a great man." She smiles through tears. "He was. Because of you. He told me everything. About that night. About how scared he was. About how you gave him a chance when no one else would. About how you taught him to be a better man. He died proud. Proud of his life. Proud of his work. Proud of his family. That's because of you." Thomas shakes his head. "That's because of him. I just opened a door. He walked through it and did all the work." Maria reaches into her purse. Pulls out an envelope. "My father wrote you a letter before he died. He never sent it. I found it in his things. I wanted you to have it." Thomas takes the envelope with shaking hands. Opens it. Inside is a handwritten letter. Dated 3 months before Miguel died. "Boss, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Cancer finally got me. I'm writing this while I still can because there are things I need you to know. Things I never said enough while I was alive. You saved my life. Not just that night when you let me go instead of shooting me. But after. When you hired me. When you taught me. When you treated me like a man instead of a criminal. You gave me 10 years of real life. A decade where I woke up proud instead of ashamed. Where I worked hard for honest pay. Where I built something. A family. A reputation. A legacy for my daughter. Without you, I'd have died in cartel violence years ago. Or been in prison. My daughter would have grown up without a father. Or worse, with a father she was ashamed of. Instead, she has 10 years of memories with a father who loved her. Who worked hard. Who showed her that people can change. That's because of you. I know you'll say it was because of me. That you just gave me a chance and I did the work. And yes, I did work. But boss, without that first chance, I never would have had the opportunity to work. To prove myself. To become someone better. You gave me that. So thank you. Thank you for seeing something in me worth saving. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you for teaching me that honor and hard work matter. Thank you for showing me that redemption is real. I'm dying knowing I lived well. Knowing my daughter is proud of me. Knowing I made a difference in my community. Knowing I helped others the way you helped me. That's everything. That's a good death. And I owe it to you. So thank you, boss. Thank you for everything. Your friend Miguel. Thomas finishes reading. Can't speak.
Just stands there with tears running down his face.
Maria hugs him.
Thank you, she whispers. Thank you for giving me a father I could be proud of. They stand there for a long moment. Two people connected by one man who connected them both. Eventually, Maria pulls back. I have one more thing to tell you.
What?
I'm joining the Marines. I ship out to basic training next month. I want to serve like you did. Want to make a difference like my father did. Want to carry forward what both of you started.
Thomas looks at this young woman.
Daughter of a cartel member he helped redeem. Now joining the military to serve her country. The circle completing in a way he never imagined.
I'm proud of you, Maria.
Your father would be too.
She smiles. I know.
That's why I'm doing it. 16 years after the incident, Thomas Patterson is 74 years old. His health is declining again.
More heart issues. Doctors are concerned. They tell him to rest. Reduce stress.
Prepare for the possibility that his time is limited. Thomas takes the advice seriously but refuses to stop living. He continues consulting remotely. Answering calls from ranchers and former cartel members.
Providing guidance.
Encouragement. Wisdom earned through 7 decades of living. One morning, he gets a call from a number he doesn't recognize. He answers.
Senor Patterson? Yes?
This is Hector Vargas.
Thomas freezes.
The cartel lieutenant who led the attack on his ranch 16 years ago. The man who burned his house.
Who threatened him.
Who's been in federal prison ever since.
What do you want, Hector?
I'm calling because I'm getting out next month.
16 years served.
5 years of good behavior earned early release. I'll be deported to Mexico immediately after. I wanted to call before that happens.
Why?
Thomas's voice is cautious. Because I owe you something.
An apology. An explanation.
Maybe just a conversation. Will you hear me out? Thomas considers hanging up. This man tried to kill him. Destroyed his property. Represented everything Thomas fought against. But Thomas has spent 16 years helping former cartel members. Has learned that people can change. That redemption is possible even for those who seem unredeemable.
I'm listening.
Hector takes a deep breath. That night at your ranch changed my life. Not immediately. Not for years, actually. At first, I was just angry. Angry I failed. Angry I got caught. Angry that one old man humiliated me. I blamed you for my prison sentence. For losing my position. For everything. But prison gives you time. Time to think. Time to see clearly. And eventually, I realized something.
You were right. I was wrong.
I spent 20 years in the cartel.
Hurt people. Destroyed lives.
Made millions from suffering.
And for what?
I ended up in prison. Lost everything. Destroyed my own life as thoroughly as I destroyed others. Thomas listens silently. Hector continues. I heard about what you've been doing. Helping people leave the cartel. Giving them chances. Miguel Hernandez worked for you. We were in prison together for 3 years before he was deported. He told me everything. About how you hired him.
Taught him. Changed his life.
I didn't believe it at first. Thought it was manipulation. But then I saw other men from our world getting out and succeeding.
Working honest jobs. Building families. Living free.
All connected to you somehow. All grateful. I realized you weren't just defending your ranch that night. You were defending a principle. And afterward, you lived that principle. You proved that redemption is possible. That people can change. That the cycle of violence can be broken. I wanted to tell you that I understand now. I understand what you were fighting for. And I'm sorry I forced you to fight. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. For the house I burned. For the fear I brought to your door. I can't undo it. Can't make it right. But I wanted you to know that I see it clearly now. And when I get out, when I go back to Mexico, I'm going to try to live differently. Not because I'm afraid of prison.
Because I want to.
Because you showed me it's possible. Thomas is quiet for a long moment.
Then he speaks.
Hector, I appreciate the apology.
I do.
But words are easy. Living differently is hard. How do I know you mean this?
You don't.
I can't prove it over the phone from a prison cell. All I can do is ask you to watch. When I get back to Mexico, I'm going to work with a Catholic mission that helps at-risk youth. Try to keep kids from joining cartels the way I did at 16. Try to break the cycle. If you want proof, check on me in a year.
2 years. 5 years.
See if I'm still doing it. That's the only way I can prove I changed. Thomas considers this. Finally says, I'll be watching, Hector. And if you're serious, if you really do this work, then I'll know your apology was real. If not, then it was just words from a man facing deportation.
The choice is yours. I understand.
Thank you for listening, Senor Patterson. And thank you for showing men like me that change is possible. Even if it took me 16 years to see it.
They hang up. Thomas sits with the call. Thinking. Processing.
He doesn't know if Hector is genuine. Doesn't know if the man will actually change or just return to crime once he's free. But he gave him the same thing he gave everyone else.
A chance.
The opportunity to prove himself. Whether Hector takes it is up to him. A year later, Thomas receives a letter from Mexico.
It's from Hector.
Inside are photographs. Hector working at a mission. Teaching carpentry to teenagers. Building furniture with at-risk kids. The letter explains that he's been clean for a year. Working full-time with the mission. Living in a small room. Making almost nothing. But feeling peace for the first time in his adult life. He includes contact information for the mission director. Suggests Thomas call to verify everything.
Thomas does.
The director confirms it all. Says Hector has been consistent, dedicated, and genuine. Says he's making a real difference with these kids.
Thomas writes back.
Tells Hector he's proud of him. Encourages him to continue. Offers to help if he ever needs anything. They begin corresponding regularly. Not frequently, but steadily.
Every few months, an update. A question.
A shared reflection on redemption and change. The cartel lieutenant and the Marine who fought him. Now connected not by violence but by a shared belief that people can become better than they were. 17 years after the incident, Thomas is 75. His doctor delivers news he's been expecting but dreading. His heart is failing.
Maybe 6 months.
Maybe a year.
Not more. Thomas takes it calmly. He's lived a full life.
Served his country.
Raised a daughter. Defended his land.
Helped hundreds of people find better paths. He's ready for whatever comes next. But first, he has work to finish. He calls Miguel's daughter Maria. She's finishing her first deployment with the Marines. He tells her about his prognosis. She's devastated. Wants to come home immediately. He tells her no.
Finish your service.
Make your father proud.
Make me proud. When you're done, come visit. We'll talk then. He calls Carlos.
The young man he helped 11 years ago. Carlos is now a construction foreman. Married with 2 kids. Living the life he never thought possible. Thomas tells him to keep going.
Keep building.
Keep helping others the way Thomas helped him.
Pass it forward.
Carlos promises he will. Thomas calls every person he helped.
One by one.
37 conversations.
Each one different.
Each one meaningful. He tells them all the same thing. I'm proud of you. You did the hard work. You proved change is possible. Now it's your turn to help others.
Keep the cycle going.
They all promise they will.
Some cry. Some thank him. Some just listen.
All of them understand they're saying goodbye. Thomas's daughter wants him to fight. Try experimental treatments.
Clinical trials.
Anything to extend his life.
Thomas refuses.
I've lived 75 years.
Good years. Hard years.
Years that mattered.
I'm not afraid of death. I'm ready.
Just let me finish well. He spends his remaining months writing letters. Final thoughts for people he cares about. Guidance for the rehabilitation program he helped build. Reflections on lessons learned. He writes to Hector in Mexico. Encourages him to keep working with at-risk youth. Tells him that redemption is a lifelong journey, not a destination. That every day you choose to live right is a victory. He writes to the Department of Justice. Provides recommendations for improving the rehabilitation program. Expanding it. Funding it properly. Making it permanent. He writes to his Marine Corps brothers. Thanks them for decades of friendship. For backing him up when it mattered most. For teaching him what honor means. 18 years after the incident, on a quiet Tuesday morning in April, Thomas Patterson dies peacefully in his sleep. His daughter is with him. His grandchildren nearby. He goes gently. No pain. No fear. Just peace. The funeral is held in Arizona. Nearly 400 people attend.
Former Marines,
Ranchers,
Border Patrol agents,
federal prosecutors, and 63 former cartel members whose lives Thomas changed. They come from across the Southwest. Some travel from Mexico.
they fill the church,
Stand outside when there's no more room.
they share stories, cry, laugh, remember.
Miguel's daughter, Maria, speaks. In her Marine Corps dress uniform. She talks about her father.
About Thomas,
About how one man's courage created ripples that touched hundreds of lives. About how she's dedicating her military career to carrying forward what Thomas started.
Carlos speaks, the construction foreman,
He talks about being 22 and terrified. About Thomas giving him a chance when everyone else saw only a criminal. About learning that your past doesn't define your future. About how he's now helping other young men the way Thomas helped him. Hector sends a video message from Mexico. He's crying. Says he never thought he'd mourn the man he once tried to kill. But Thomas showed him what real strength looks like.
not violence, not intimidation, but principle, mercy,
The courage to stand your ground and the wisdom to offer second chances. Says he's dedicating the rest of his life to honoring Thomas's legacy by helping kids avoid the path he took. The funeral procession drives past Redemption Ranch. They stop at the monument. The stone marker where Thomas's house once stood. Someone has added fresh flowers.
a new plaque. It reads, Thomas Patterson,
1934 to 2027, Marine.
rancher, mentor, hero.
He stood his ground and changed the world. They stand in silence for 10 minutes. Honoring the man. Honoring the moment that changed everything.
Then they move on, back to their lives, their work, their missions.
All of them carrying forward what Thomas taught them. That courage matters. That principles matter. That second chances matter. That one person can make a difference. That standing your ground isn't just about defending property. It's about defending values. And sometimes, the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy. It's transforming them into something better. 6 months after Thomas's death, the Thomas Patterson Second Chance Foundation is formally established. Funded by donations from the hundreds of people he helped. The foundation provides scholarships, job training, mentorship, and support for former cartel members trying to build new lives. It partners with the federal rehabilitation program Thomas helped design.
Expands it, makes it more effective.
In its first year, the foundation helps 87 people leave cartel life. The success rate is 78%. Over the next 5 years, that number grows to over 400. The foundation becomes a model studied by governments worldwide. Countries facing gang violence and cartel problems send representatives to learn the approach. Not all of them implement it successfully.
But some do.
And in those places, young men get options they didn't have before. Cycles of violence begin to break. Communities start to heal. 20 years after the incident that started it all, Redemption Ranch is thriving. Miguel passed away 8 years after Thomas, also from cancer. But his daughter Maria, now a captain in the Marine Corps, left the military and took over operations. She's expanded the model. The ranch now employs 15 former cartel members.
It's become a training center.
Other ranches send people to learn security protocols, rehabilitation approaches, and sustainable ranching practices.
It's profitable, respected.
And it's proof that Thomas's vision was more than idealistic dreaming.
It was practical, achievable, replicable.
The monument where Thomas made his stand has become something of a pilgrimage site. People come from across the country.
Veterans,
Ranchers. People struggling with their own demons. They stand there.
read the plaques.
Think about what happened on this ground. About one man choosing courage over fear. Principle over expedience. Mercy over vengeance. And they leave inspired. Believing that maybe they too can stand for something. Can make a difference.
Can change lives.
The ripples continue.
Thomas Patterson is gone.
But his legacy grows. Every person he helped directly has helped others. Carlos, the construction foreman, has mentored 12 young men out of gang life. Hector, the former cartel lieutenant, has kept 43 teenagers from joining cartels through his work at the mission. Maria, Miguel's daughter, has used her military training to teach self-defense and tactical awareness to rural communities across the Southwest. The rehabilitation program Thomas designed has now helped over 2,000 people leave cartel life. Of those 2,000, 1,500 are still clean.
Still working.
Still building families and contributing to communities. That's 1,500 people who would otherwise be trafficking drugs, killing rivals, recruiting children, destroying families. The impact is immeasurable.
The lives saved. The crimes prevented.
The cycles broken. All because one man refused to let criminals take his ranch. And then chose to do something meaningful with that stand. This is the story of Thomas Patterson.
Not a perfect man. Not a saint.
Just a Marine who became a rancher who became something more.
A symbol. A teacher.
A catalyst for change. His story proves that courage still matters in a cynical world. That second chances can transform lives. That one person in one moment, making one choice, can change everything. If you've watched this entire video, then you understand something important. This story isn't just about Thomas Patterson or Redemption Ranch or cartel violence on the border.
It's about all of us.
About the choices we make when confronted with evil. About whether we believe people can change. About whether we're willing to stand for something even when it's hard. Even when it's dangerous. Even when we're outnumbered. Thomas Patterson stood his ground against 23 armed men. You might never face that specific situation.
But you'll face your own moments.
Times when you have to choose between what's easy and what's right. Between giving up and standing firm. Between judgment and mercy. In those moments, remember this story. Remember that courage is contagious. That mercy is powerful. That one choice can ripple outward in ways you'll never fully see. So make good choices. Stand for something.
Help people who want help.
And never underestimate the impact you can have. Because if a 74-year-old rancher in rural Arizona can change hundreds of lives and inspire thousands more, then so can you. The question isn't whether you have the power to make a difference. The question is whether you'll choose to use it.
Now hit that subscribe button. Leave a like.
Share this video with everyone you know. And drop a comment below telling me your story. Have you ever had to stand your ground? Have you ever given someone a second chance? Have you ever been given one? I want to hear from you. Because we're building a community here. A community of people who believe stories like this matter. Who believe courage and mercy and second chances are still possible in our broken world. Who believe one person can make a difference.
So join us. Subscribe. Comment. Share.
And let's keep Thomas Patterson's legacy alive. Not by talking about it, but by living it. Every single day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember, your moment is coming. The moment when you have to choose who you'll be.
Will you run? Will you fight?
Will you stand your ground?
The choice is yours. Make it count.